Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Now, I've been doing this whole song and dance for a couple of years now, and I've gotten a lot of requests. And hey, that's awesome. I'm glad you want to hear me talk about your favorite themes, and trust me, one day we will cover every archetype, every card in the game. But of all the archetypes requested, one has been asked for above all others. It's had the most consistent, vocal fanbase in the comments, and while some may think I've been ignoring their calls, I've simply been waiting for the right time. And now, that time has come. Everyone grab your snacks and strap yourselves in for the long haul, because today we're talking about one of my favorite themes, presenting Cloudians. Premiering in the November 2007 core set Gladiators. I'm kidding! We're talking about Six Samurai. Premiering in the February 2007 core set, Strike of Neos, Six Samurai have had a presence across several eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! And each time they make a resurgence, they demand respect, as they always seem to adapt in just the right way to stay competitive with their contemporaries. Which has created a very interesting concoction, where a fan-favorite theme steeped in nostalgia was actually a good contender to take to events. And it probably had something to do with the fact that, at its core, Six Samurai are probably the most Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype ever made. A series of synergistic monsters and effects that swarm out special summons, allowing you to leverage all of them into powerful extra deck monsters to close out games and solve various problems. And so, the time has come to take a trip down memory lane and recount the talents and tales of these most skilled of sword masters. Let's go over the warriors that have sworn their fealty to their feudal lord, see how their tactics play out, then see what ronins will make for fine reinforcements. It's time to practice the art of Bushido with Six Samurai. But before we continue, Six Samurai is a really big archetype, so despite the fact that it's a fan favorite, it's been hard to find the time to actually make this video. Which is why I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsors for helping make this episode a reality. Sakura Co. and Tokyo Treat are a pair of subscription snack box services that give you delicious treats straight from Japan. You've seen me talk about them in the past, and the quality just keeps on going. Tokyo Treat focuses on bringing you the latest and greatest in limited edition and exclusive snacks of the modern era. This month's theme is the Moon Festival Munchies box in celebration of Tsukimi, a festival that goes on around this time of year. Each box we've gotten from Tokyo Treat has a particular flavor of Kit Kat, and I just couldn't resist trying this one out. They have salt lemon, and I couldn't think of a better person in my entire life to share it with than my wonderful partner, Delilah. I'm subjecting you to this. Come on and give it a every time with that. So, when you hear salt lemon on a candy bar, what's the first thought that comes to your mind?
Nova flavored, because you're so salty when you play Yu-Gi-Oh!
Ooh, boy, I hate that that's true. Oh. Yeah, that is salty. Holy cow.
Just like when you used to play Six Samurai and Duel Links.
Hey. Okay, that's a bit too topical. No, but like, this flavor makes more sense than I thought it would. Like, it's sweet and salty all at the same time. And it does have that, like, real, like, powerful lemon taste to it. I thought they were going to tone that down for, like, the candy part.
It's salty, it's lemony, it's a good summer treat.
Now, another treat that's commonplace this time of year is mochi. And it's around this this orange, mandarin orange flavored treat. It's got a little doggy.
Ooh, look at that. You know it's good mochi when it does the little...
It's so stretchy. Ooh.
It's really good.
Well, it's so mellow.
So mellow. So orange.
Wow.
Has a zest for life.
Oh yeah, no, more. But if you're looking for something a bit more traditional, you'll want to check out Sakura Co. Each month they focus on a different region of Japan and explore their culture and history through snacking. This month they're focusing on Kyoto, which is the perfect place to experience the Moon Viewing Festival. Sakura Co. actually partners with the governments of each prefecture they feature to make sure you get the highest quality snacks that represent a long and storied history, which is why they included these hard candies from Amasho Sawahara. The person who started it all, Isao Sawahara, has been perfecting the process since the 60s, and it's all made by hand. Not a single automated process touches these things when they're being made. And I know all that because each box comes with a special booklet that details the culture and history of the region it covers. And don't worry, Tokyo Treat's got you covered with one too. Alright, now let's give some of these things a shot. Well, yeah, it's very... Sometimes with these hard candies, it's like difficult to like get the flavor out of them sometimes, but this is like,
It might be because it's a little hard.
Alright, okay. Good pun, good pun. Each box also comes with an excellent tea pairing that goes with the rest of the items in the box. This month we're enjoying, and I'm gonna read it off from here, the Gion Sujiri Hojicha. And to pair with it, we've got some matcha wafers here, and it's got little moon rabbits on it, because that's the whole thing with the moon viewing festival. There's rabbits on the moon. Okay, this thing looks heckin' cute.
That looks so cute. It's kind of hard to imagine to eat it.
That's okay. If you don't want it, I'll just have the whole thing. It's fine.
I would like to partake. Thank you very much.
Oh no, but the poor button. You wouldn't want to, you wouldn't want to be part of this. Okay, all right, fine. There you go.
Oh, there's that matcha on the inside of it too.
Oh wait, we gotta.
Tink.
Tink.
Oh, it's so good.
That wafer's so crispy.
That wafer has like excellent crispiness to it. And I'm not that big of a matcha fan, but this is really, really good. They have such a nice, fresher matcha than I think that we have over here. It's made over here. And it has a different, like, really great taste to it. And the tea pairs super well with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we haven't even scratched the surface on what you get in these boxes. If you want to begin your culinary adventure, go down to the description and click my affiliate link and use code GOLDEN to get $5 off your first box. Begin your taste buds on their delicious journey through Japan, save a little money, and help the channel out all at the same time. Thank you so much to Sakura Co. and Tokyo Treat for sponsoring today's video, and now, back to the video. What are you doing?
I can explain? Bye.
Hey, get back here. Part 1. New Kids on the Block. So, what's the deal with Six Samurai? Well, they're a series of warrior-type monsters of various attributes and levels, and their primary focus is on fielding as many of them as possible for a variety of reasons. Some have effects that only apply while you control another Six Samurai, some can be special summoned if you control a Six Samurai, some summon other Six Samurais, all kinds of stuff. However, unlike some themes that keep getting updates over the years, Six Sams have never really deviated from this game plan, but rather have gotten tools that help them accomplish this, refine it, or find a new context to use them in, even if it means some older tools end up becoming obsolete. For example, many of the first generation Six Samurai, at least from our perspective, have largely been phased out of play, but we'll still be going over them to make sure they're accounted for. The first Six Samurai all have their own unique effect that can only be activated or applied if you control another Six Samurai monster of a different name, as well as sharing an effect that allows you to destroy another Six Samurai monster you control in place of itself. So if you have two, and your opponent goes after one, and it's the one you really want to keep around, you can have the other take the hit, like two stalwart companions looking out for each other on the battlefield, willing to lay down their lives to save their brother-in-arms. Our first two are pretty simple. Six Samurai Yaichi is a level 3 water monster with 1300 attack and 800 defense, and while you control another Six Samurai monster, you can target a set spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. However, if you use this effect, Yaichi can't attack that turn. Likewise, Six Samurai Kaman is a level 3 fire monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, and while you control another Six Samurai monster, you can target a face-up spell or trap card on the field and destroy it, but Kaman will also not be able to attack the turn you activate this effect. It's pretty nice to have some baked-in removal for your theme, even though it's very restricted on what you can remove and also lowers your offensive momentum. But it's a fair price to pay for not having to worry about pesky battle traps or floodgates that are putting a damper on your plays. I also like the dichotomy at play here. Yaichi is careful and considered, lining up the perfect shot to minimize wasted ammunition and to ensure a clean kill. Meanwhile, Kaman is immediately ready to blow stuff up, no questions asked. It's amazing. Six Samurai Nasashi is a level 4 wind monster with 1400 attack and 700 defense, and while you control another Six Samurai monster, this card can attack twice during each battle phase. Now, with a stat line like that, it's not exactly going to be clearing very many threats on its own. However, its base attack is higher than most other double attackers of the age, which means it needed even less investment to become a combat threat. Even a boost of 500 gave them a 1900 point body, which could rack up kills and damage very quickly, so your opponent's resources would be gone because of this wind. 6 Samurai Yuriza is a level 3 Earth monster with 1000 attack and 500 defense, and while you control another 6 Samurai monster, this card can attack directly. Now, this can be judged differently from Nisashi because you're not trying to see how well this measures up against other monsters, but rather how quickly you can close the game out. And by itself, Yuriza puts your opponent on the 8-turn clock, which isn't very pressing. Some boosts might help, but you'd need an extravagant amount of boosts to make the clock go meaningfully faster. Instead, think of this as a sneak attack you can deploy on a moment's notice. If you're a few turns in and both you and your opponent have taken some hits and paid some hefty life points, Yuriza can pop up to slay an unprepared opponent who was counting on a phalanx of monsters to keep them safe. Something that could still be relevant in modern games, though your mileage may vary. Though I've gotta say, I'm pretty surprised that they kept with the samurai theming here and didn't jump ship to plunder patrols, considering their name is Yuriza. 6 Samurai Iroh is a level 4 dark monster with 1700 attack and 1200 defense, and while you control another 6 Samurai monster, when this card attacks a face down defense position monster, you can destroy it at the start of the damage step, which means no flipping up. A nice way to clear monsters that have some form of battle destruction immunity, or that have nasty flip effects you'd rather like to avoid. But unfortunately, there isn't much else to tell about this card, since you'll generally have to use Book of Moon to make this effect live, or ensure that you're always matched up against crawlers or something. Which is a real shame because they easily have the best armor out of the entire squad. I want that visor so bad. 6 Samurai Zanji is a level 4 light monster with 1800 attack and 1300 defense, and while you control another 6 Samurai monster, when this card attacks an opponent's monster after damage calculation, you can destroy that opponent's monster. It's a bit clunky, but Zanji gives you the tools you need to deal with monsters that are too big for your other samurais to handle normally. In exchange for a few life points and a monster, you can crash Zanji into anything, and if it can be destroyed, you don't have to worry about it for much longer. Though if you only have 2 6 Samurai, make sure you don't use the replacement destruction to destroy the other 6 Sam to keep Zanji around, because then you'll only have 1 6 Sam on resolution, and it'll all have been for naught. So even if it takes a noble sacrifice, not even a giant monster board will stand in your way, because this card will always be the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, that's the principal cast of 6 Samurais, but they wouldn't be able to travel the land and do battle against evil with awesome cyber gear without a world-class support team. And the one that ties them all together is Grandmaster of the 6 Samurai, a level 5 Earth monster with 2100 attack and 800 defense, and if you control a 6 Samurai monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you can only control 1 copy of this card. And if this card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can add a 6 Samurai monster from your grave to your hand. This was, and arguably still is, an amazing boon to the 6 Samurai strategy. Without this, you'd be forced to run a number of other cards to assemble 2 or more 6 Samurai near the beginning of the duel to ensure your effects are online. But having your own Cyber Dragon type monster makes that trivial. The only downside is that you can't just slap reinforcement of the army onto the board to grab this, but keep that in mind for later. 2100 attack is also an astounding stat line to help get over monsters that would be a bit too much for our weaker samurai, and having a replacement effect means that you can buy back some of your resources even if your opponent counterpunches with a mirror force, though your opponent can sidestep this by just punching over Grandmaster. But given its effects, synergy with them, and overall great teaching method, this card gets 5 out of 5 stars from me. And also its stat line. Chamberlain of the 6 Samurai is a level 3 Earth normal monster with 200 attack and 2000 defense. The 6 Samurai are supported from the shadows by this silent and mysterious warrior. His past is unknown to them, but his countless scars are proof of his experience. Now, you might be wondering why in the heck a theme that needs to be as fast as possible with its summons to fully utilize its power would go around playing a monster that doesn't really progress our win condition. However, remember that most of our 6 Samurai do not have a good stat line, in either attack or defense. If you're going first, you better have Zanji, and you better pray they don't draw a bigger normal summon. Chamberlain works as a way to build up your 6 Samurais while also helping get their effects online. If your opponent attacks into it, they'll realize they might not have the manpower needed to get over it. And now you have a 6 Samurai on board, so all your effects that need another 6 Samurai are online. You can even choose to destroy Chamberlain as part of the replacement effects of your regular 6 Samurai, so you don't lose a monster that's providing you with a good effect. And in modern times, well, you never know when a good unexpected die target could add to your combo lines. Besides, do you know anyone who knows how to maintain futuristic samurai gear? And don't say we can ask someone from Kamigawa to do it. Yu-Gi-Oh's a multiverse, but it's not that much of a multiverse. Spirit of the Six Samurai is a level 3 Earth Union monster with 500 attack and defense. It has all the usual Union nonsense. You can either equip it from the field to an appropriate target, this time being 6 samurais, or special summon this card from the back row if it's equipped, and if the equipped monster would be destroyed, you destroy this card instead. And when it destroys a monster by battle, you draw a card. This makes for an incredible accomplice to many of our 6 samurai. The attack bonus alone is enough to make them a bit hardier on the board, and we've already talked about what that kind of boost can do for Nasashi. It even draws you cards, so if our Wind Warrior takes out 2 monsters, you just netted a ton of card advantage. And while it won't count towards your 6 samurai monster count as an equipped card, you can just peel it off your monster to help with it if need be, though that does mean you'll be stuck with a very small monster, which isn't ideal. However, in any other situation, Spirit is an amazing contribution to the team, which is kind of miraculous because if that type line said Spirit instead of Union, you know, like the name, we'd be having a whole other conversation. And apropos of nothing, here's Hand of the Six Samurai, a level 3 fire monster with 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and if you control another 6 samurai monster, you contribute a 6 samurai monster you control to destroy a monster your opponent controls. Now, if you were so inclined, you could just outright tribute Hand itself to keep your other monsters alive, though to be fair, Hand does have better stats than most of our monsters, so it might be to your benefit to say, use Yaichi or Kamon to remove a card and then double dip by tributing them to Hand for monster removal, since they weren't going to be attacking that turn anyway. And there's not a once per turn limit on this card, so the more samurais you have, the more monsters you can clean up. That's some pretty efficient removal, especially for the time, so I've gotta hand it to him. Part 2. Everyone's always asking about Nobunaga's ambition, but what about Nobunaga's feelings? Scroll through these 6 samurai cards long enough and you'll come across the name Shien quite a bit. They're not a 6 samurai, well, sometimes, but is basically tied to the archetype at the hip, both mechanically and in the lore. That's because Shien is this world's stand-in for Oda Nobunaga, an infamous warlord during the Japanese Warring States period that was characterized by his ruthless tactics being likened to a demon, and his Yu-Gi-Oh counterpart does whatever's possible to live up to their inspiration. In fact, the 6 samurai have a ton of lore and cultural callbacks, but that deserves a video all its own. Besides, this one's gonna be plenty long as it is. Now, the cards themselves are all 6 samurai support on varying levels, but does include a card that has the bare minimum synergy with them. Tenkabito Shien is a level 4 fire pyro monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, and this card is unaffected by the effects of trap cards. So we have a very tangentially related elemental hero Wildheart, but not much else. It didn't even have the decency to stay as a warrior type, though the name Shien does translate to blue flame. Or is it purple flame? I'm getting conflicting messages here. The point is, mechanically, this card isn't very helpful. In fact, if we didn't have 6 samurai cards that also worked with Shien effect monsters, we wouldn't even be talking about this. The point is, mechanically, this card isn't helpful at all, and doesn't really deserve much consideration unless you expect to be dueling a whole bunch of pure Paleozoic decks, because as we all know, ancient deep-sea organisms are the natural rival of shoguns. Okay, onto some more relevant cards. Shien Squire is a level 1 Earth Tuner monster with 300 attack and 700 defense, and during damage calculation during either player's turn, if a 6 samurai monster you control battles, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, and that monster can't be destroyed by battle this turn. Ooh boy, a protective hand trap. It's not the most wild card to be sure, but at least it had the good sense to be like Effect Veiler or Ash Blossom, because this card is a tuner, and because it's Earth, that means Naturia shenanigans. And bonus, this card means you never have to return to Monkey because you've already got there. Shien's Foot Soldier is a level 2 monster with 700 attack and 300 defense, and when this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the grave, you can special summon a level 3 or lower 6 samurai monster from your deck. This is pretty odd considering we've got a big pool of level 4 monsters, but we'll see later on that Shien has a penchant for the number 3. And despite the level weirdness, this can still float into hand for removal, or Chamberlain to get you a big ol' butt. Now, let's move on to the next card as soon as possible. I don't know what's going on with Foot Soldier, but it's got that empty look in its eyes that says it really wants to use that spear to find out what color human blood is. Shien's Advisor is a level 4 Earth monster with 1200 attack and 400 defense, and if this card is normal summoned while you control a 6 samurai monster, you declare a monster type, and while this card is face up on the field, monsters with the declared monster type can't declare an attack or be special summoned. That's actually kinda cool. Like, with those stats, it folds to just about anything, and you have to normal summon this to trigger the effect. You can't just drop it on the field all willy-nilly. But if ever there's a time where a mono-type deck is ruling the roost and can't just pivot into another type long enough to out-advisor, this could be your jam. Now, can you let them get back to their desk? That tea ain't gonna stay hot for long. Shien's Daredevil is a level 4 Earth monster with 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and when this card is normal summoned, place a Bushido counter on it, maximum 1. This card gains 300 attack for each Bushido counter on it, and once per turn you can target a face-up card on the field that you can place a Bushido counter on to remove it from this card and place it on that target. This will tie in with all the spells later on that use Bushido counters as a resource. Normally, they gain those counters whenever you summon a 6 Samurai, but I guess Daredevil wanted to be on the action. But I'm sorry, you're never gonna be as cool as Breaker the Magical Warrior. The level 4 1600 attack monster that gains a counter on normal summon that makes them 1900 but can be spent on some kind of utility effect train has left the station. Move on. Anishi, Shien's Chancellor, is a level 6 light monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense that can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned from the hand by banishing 2 6 Samurai monster from your grave. Once per turn, you can target a face-up monster and destroy that target, but this card can't attack the turn this effect is activated. 2200 attack is pretty sizable, and being able to punch above its weight class with the removal effect each turn is very cool. Though, I don't think diplomacy is their strong suit if their conflicts are settled with destruction effects. Great Shogun Shien is the big boss of the whole operation. They're a level 7 fire monster with 2500 attack and 2400 defense, and if you control 2 or more face-up 6 samurai monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. While on the field, your opponent can only activate 1 spell or trap card each turn, and if this card would be destroyed, you can destroy a face-up 6 samurai monster you control instead. So we can see that the loyalty only flows one way. Shien can be saved by sacrificing a 6 samurai, but Shien doesn't provide that same option for the ones they command. But leadership scruples aside, this is a big payoff for 6 Sams, though with some diminishing returns as time's gone on. The spell and trap limitation can be very powerful, especially if your opponent requires the use of multiple to play out their lines. But if your opponent doesn't need that, or leads with a spell or trap card that removes Shien, then your opponent's not going to have much of an issue. There's also some loopholes you'll want to keep in mind. Your opponent can only activate a spell or trap card each turn, which means they can activate any number of spell and trap effects without hindrance, which will usually manifest as continuous cards that are already face up on the field, or that have any graveyard triggers or activations. The activate term is also very important, because if you negate the activation of a spell or trap card, then it'll be treated as if it didn't happen, so your opponent gets another shot. Though things that just negate the effect, like Ash Blossom, won't cause a refund. But outside the 30 layers of Shien complexity, it's just nice to have a big 2500 attack monster in a theme that's primarily made of 1400 to 1800 attack monsters. And with the advent of more 6 samurai that special summon themselves, the easier this card becomes to summon, though is a huge break if you can't. Shien might be a relic of the past, but take heed not to underestimate this master of the blue flame, lest you get burned. Part 3. Legends of the Hidden Dojo! In the February 2011 core set Storm of Ragnarok, the legendary 6 Samurais were introduced, basically a prequel to the 6 Samurais we'd all come to know and love. Not only did they amp up the swarming capabilities and add synchro summoning to the mix, this theme was rife with references to the old cards, revealing that a number of the supporting cast were, in fact, the original 6 Samurai, which was a pretty cool way to do a fan service. In fact, if you look at the first wave of 6 Samurai support, you can see several of their armor in the background. It's really cool. Legendary 6 Samurai Kageki is a level 3 wind monster with 200 attack and 2000 defense, and is the original version of Chamberlain of the 6 Samurai. When normal summoned, you can special summon a level 4 or lower 6 samurai monster from your hand, and while you control a 6 samurai monster with a different name, this card gains 1500 attack. So while its stat line is mostly similar to its normal monster form, it can immediately jump up to be quite the chonker when paired with a friend. This is an outstanding way to deploy your samurai, especially because this sets up the conditions you need to summon Great Shogun Shien, as well as possibly another Shien we'll get to in a bit. This may just be an on-theme marauding captain, but when that marauding captain comes with 4 blades and 2 robot arms, I'm certainly not complaining. Legendary 6 Samurai Mizuho is a level 3 fire monster with 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and is the original version of Hand of the 6 Samurai. If you control legendary 6 Samurai Shinai, you can special summon this card from your hand, and once per turn, you contribute another face-up 6 Samurai monster, then target a card on the field and destroy it. It's interesting to see the similarities between the two forms of this monster. Hand doesn't have a once per turn restriction, but can only hit monsters, while Mizuho does have a once per turn restriction, though it's not a hard once per turn, but is able to hit anything, and has to tribute another 6 Samurai, it can't just be itself. But what really sets this apart is that it specifically names another one of the team, legendary 6 Samurai Shinai, a level 3 water monster with 1500 attack and defense, and is the original form of Spirit of the 6 Samurai. Ooh, spooky implications! If you control legendary 6 Samurai Mizuho, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if this card on the field is tributed, you can target a 6 Samurai monster in your grave, except a copy of itself, and add it to your hand. So ideally, you use Shinai as ammo for Mizuho, making what is initially a 1-for-1 trade, which turns into a +1 because Shinai gets you a card back. This keeps you from infinitely looping them on the face of it, but we'll change that later on. These cards are pretty good on the surface, but the issue is that they're so much more insular than the rest of the theme. So few cards in the 6 Samurai roster tribute monsters for effect, and while Mizuho can work just fine in place of hand, only being able to special summon alongside a specific 6 Sam limits their swarming capabilities, which the deck is kinda known for. So we have a case where, strangely, fire and water work very well with each other, just not with others. Legendary 6 Samurai Anishi is a level 4 light monster with 1700 attack and 700 defense, and is the original version of Anishi, Shien's Chancellor. I know, that one was a real brain bender, but that's why they pay me the big bucks here. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can banish 2 6 Samurai monsters from your grave to target a face-up monster on the field and return that target to the hand. But you must control a face-up 6 Samurai monster with a different name to activate and resolve this effect. And while you control 2 or more face-up 6 Samurai monsters, except copies of legendary 6 Samurai Anishi, this card gains 500 attack and defense, which puts its stat line as the same as Chancellor. Now, this card is really fresh. While you do have to keep banishing cards for the bounce, a bit more expensive since Chancellor was kind of a one and done, legendary Anishi's removal is at quick effect speed and bounces, which gets around destruction protection. Heck, you can even bounce your own monsters if you need to in fringe cases. And with a developed board, this card is no slouch. 2200 is a very powerful stat line for a normal summon. Also, that weapon is so cool. I don't know what variant of katana that is, the perspective's a little warped, but having the laser edge inside the blade like that, I'm going feral. Legendary 6 Samurai Kizan is a level 4 earth monster with 1800 attack and 500 defense, and is the original version of Grandmaster of the 6 Samurai. And like their future self, if you control a 6 Samurai monster with a different name, you can special summon this card from your hand. And while you control 2 or more other 6 Samurai monsters, this card gains 300 attack and defense, once again mimicking the stats of its future self. This is kind of a no-frills monster, not really providing any utility, but it is an extender, and boy howdy is it a good one. Being a warrior, you can rota it, and can easily help you get into your rank 4s. Alternatively, any number of Earth tuners can help you access your Naturia Synchros, and can once again gain a nifty stat boost to make them a real threat when you have your teammates. Kizan may not be the master yet, but they certainly are grand. Legendary 6 Samurai Shien is a level 6 Dark Synchro monster with 2500 attack and 1400 defense, requiring a warrior tuner and 1 or more non-tuner 6 Samurai monsters as material, and is the younger version of Great Shogun Shien. The color and the shape of the armor is pretty close, but what's really wild is that you can see the same chest armor on Tenkabito's Shien. Once per chain, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card as a quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. And if this card on the field would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can destroy another 6 Samurai monster you control instead. So it maintains the protection effect, which makes a bit more sense now that Shien is a 6 Samurai, but none of the legendary ones have that effect. It was only shared among the next generation. Makes you wonder if there's a little bit of instilling a lot of blind loyalty into the future soldiers going on here. But before I get into lore when I'm not supposed to, yeah, this card is wild. It was absolutely the reason to play 6 Sams back in the day, and for good reason. Spells make up a lot of starter cards, and trap cards were some of the best ways to keep you safe on your opponent's turn, and Shien was an answer for one of those each turn. and because it wasn't a hard once per turn, the more you can establish on board, the more cards you can deny your opponent. Just make sure you remember how great Shogun Shien interacts with effect negations. So, with how stupid easy this was to deploy, you had a quick and dirty way to put a Shien to your opponent's plans. And like the Six Samurai, there are a few members in the Legendary's orbit that are here to help. Elder of the Six Samurai is a level 3 Earth monster with 400 attack and 0 defense, and is actually a future version of a monster, this time Shien's advisor, who was active during the time of the legendary Six Samurai. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. It otherwise didn't do anything else, and was meant to be easily deployable non-tuner material for your Shien, though you could conceivably use it for a lot of other things. But its best pair was with Kagemusha of the Six Samurai, a level 2 Earth tuner monster with 400 attack and 1800 defense, and is well, timeline-wise, it's a little hard to spot, but it's definitely a retrain of Kagemusha of the Blue Flames, a Legend of Blue Eyes card whose OCG name is, get this, Shien's Body Double. They were planning this out since the beginning. Anyway, during either player's turn, when exactly one face-up Six Samurai monster you control is targeted by a spell card, trap card, or card effect that could have targeted this card, you can activate this effect, and that spell, trap, or effect now targets this face-up card on the field. So if you don't just immediately fold this into a synchro, you've got yourself a lightning rod effect to draw fire away from your more important monsters. It's a lot less useful now in the face of things like forbidden droplets that don't target, but it can still eat a Veiler or Imperm, and I think that's pretty neat. But we do have to address the elephant in the room. Kagemusha, you've gotta give back Yuriza's armor. We already have someone in the roster with a big pointy helmet. You're gonna ruin the silhouette. And I suppose they took that to heart because now they're wearing someone else's costume. Shadow of the Six Samurai Shien is a rank 4 Earth monster with 2500 attack and 400 defense, requiring 2 level 4 Six Samurai monsters as material. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach a material from this card, then target a Six Samurai monster you control with less than 2000 attack, and its original attack becomes 2000 until the end of this turn. This has the potential to cause some huge boosts for your team, especially if you pick the right Sam to boost. The best is probably Kageki, as even with its boost active, it's still only at 1700, so it's eligible for Shadow's effect. But since the effect adjusts the original attack of the monster, not just its attack in general, its own 1500 attack boost will apply on top of that, making Kageki a 3500 attack monster. But even if you can't best case scenario it, the weakness of many of our early Six Samurais is that their stats are on the low end, so having a way to crank them up is a nice piece of utility. And now we know where it got its name. Not any kind of lore reason, no. It's because all the other Six Samurai would shadow them on the job to get some experience. What a good co-worker. Part 4. No, they're not ninjas, shut up! Some of the early deck build packs weren't actually made of 3 new themes, but rather 2 new themes and a batch of legacy support. We saw that with Hidden Summoners trying to reinvent Nephthys, and in November of 2017, they also tried to do this in Spirit Warriors to Six Samurai. The Secret Six Samurai are kind of unmoored from the timeline at the moment, as these all appear to be new figures with no connection to other cards. Well, with the exception of one. They provide a number of utility effects and care a lot more about what's in your grave and what you have banished. In fact, an effect that all main deck ones share is a replacement effect. If a single Six Samurai monster you control and no other cards would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from the grave instead. So it's kind of like an extension of the original Six Samurai's replacement effect. It's incredibly helpful in keeping your important samurai safe from destruction and removal, all while getting to utilize them as material to the fullest. Secret Six Samurai Fuma is a level 1 wind tuner monster with 200 attack and 1800 defense, and if this card is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can special summon a Six Samurai monster from your deck, except a copy of itself. And it doesn't care where or how it was destroyed. You can normal summon it, crash it into a monster during the battle phase, then summon a better Six Samurai, all while setting up effect destruction protection in the grave. Or if your opponent negates the summon and destroys it, it's less likely, but you might as well keep it in mind. And it's a level 1 tuner we can use to go along with our level 4s, so we don't have to use Shien's frickin' Squire. So I guess it's true that ninjas really do make everything better. Not that this is a ninja! Secret 6 Samurai Genba is a level 2 Fire Tuner monster with 500 attack and 2100 defense, and when this card is normal summoned, you can target one of your banished 6 Samurai monsters and add it to your hand. This can grab back any of your banished Secret 6 that have been used to protect your samurais. But since Legendary Inishi chews through graveyard Sams like how fine, folded Japanese steel katanas cut through their inferior Western counterparts, you could potentially recycle all kinds of 6 Sams. But the stat line feels off to me. Genba is using dynamite, kinda like Come On, but has far less attack. Did short fuse explosives become a defensive option when I wasn't looking? Like, the banish recovery I get, you just stick some dynamite under wherever the banished zone is, and out pops the card you want, but this I will not abide. Secret 6 Samurai Hatsume is a level 3 water monster with 1600 attack and 1500 defense, and can banish any 2 6 Samurai monsters from your grave and or face-up field, then target a 6 Samurai monster in your grave, except a copy of itself, and special summon it. So hey, trade out some Sams to get a fresh one, all while filling your banished zone for Genba. This can grab back dead Shiens, the Synchro, or any other extender you need to build your board. And remember, it's Hatsume, not Hatsune. The attribute may be blue, but the hair is not. Secret 6 Samurai Doji is a level 4 dark monster with 1700 attack and 1200 defense, and when another 6 Samurai monster is normal or special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can send a 6 Samurai card from your deck to the grave. Notably, this is not once per turn, so the more Sams you spam, the more you can throw into the grave. This means more fuel for Hatsume summons and Anishi bounces, as well as just throwing Secret 6 Samurais into the grave to provide effect destruction protection. And really, that's what you think when it comes to protection, right? A big ol' rifle. Secret 6 Samurai Kizaru is a level 4 earth monster with 1900 attack and 1000 defense, and when this card is special summoned, you can add from your deck to your hand a 6 Samurai monster with a different attribute from every monster you control, and that is so frustrating! Because you'd love to be able to search a Kizan or a Grandmaster to go along with the Kizaru that's on board now, right? Well, think again, because they made this one an Earth. And its search effect gets less powerful the more developed your board gets, which is a weird way to balance it. Doesn't seem on brand for 6 Sams, but okay. Thankfully, we do have a variety of ways of summoning this, so you can end up grabbing a bunch of cards over the course of a game to help facilitate your plays. Just make sure you're careful about when you special summon Kizaru, because it does miss timing for whatever reason. And despite being friends with the tiny monkeys, Kizaru isn't even a valid target for Shien Foot Soldier's destruction effect. Talk about your ludonarrative dissonance. Secret 6 Samurai Rihan is a level 5 light fusion monster with 2400 attack and defense, requiring any 3 6 Samurai monsters with different attributes as material. However, you don't use a fusion effect, rather you send those monsters you control to the grave, and Rihan themselves can't be used as fusion material. Once per turn, you can banish a 6 Samurai card from your hand or face-up field, then target a card on the field and banish it. And if any number of 6 Samurai monsters you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead. This is a massive improvement over the other Secret 6's protection effect, because they only protect one 6 Sam and only from effect destruction. It's a pretty solid monster, but I'm gonna be honest, we already do a lot more with a lot less. Investing 3 6 Sams, ones that have to be of different attributes mind you, into making this is just paying too much for a mediocre payoff. If you get hit by Dogmatic and Nexus, you'll be happy to mill this, but for everything else, just let your other monsters rehandle it. However, we do have a card that ties back to the established 6 Samurai storyline. Though it's not really a secret 6 Samurai, rather it's the legendary secret of the 6 Samurai, a level 4 dark monster with 500 attack and 2000 defense, and when you normal or special summon any number of secret 6 Samurai monsters, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And once per turn, you can banish a level 4 or lower 6 Samurai monster from your grave, and until the end of this turn, this card's attribute, level, attack, and defense become the same as that banished monster's. Kind of a shame the tag-along summon only works when you summon a secret 6 Samurai, but if you play him you get a free monster to add to the field. Its mimicking effect makes it quite malleable for certain extra deck summons, though in most cases it's really only the attack stat you care about modulating, because being a level 4 Dark Warrior is already pretty sweet. But this card is clearly a victim of overhype. Like, you call something a legendary secret, and then it ends up just being a Kage to Kage with extra utility. What a letdown. This last one isn't really a secret 6 Samurai, but it has to go somewhere, and wow, it looks like Shien's Daredevil actually took my advice. Battle Shogun of the Six Samurai is a Link 2 Earth Link monster with 1000 attack, requiring any 2 warrior monsters, including a 6 samurai. So thankfully you can use it with any of your Shien cards, minus Tenkabito. Anyway, if Link summoned, you can discard a card to add a card from your deck to your hand that has an effect that places Bushido counters, which is very, very powerful. Each time any number of 6 samurai monsters are normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, you place a Bushido counter on this card, and Battle Shogun gains 100 attack for each Bushido counter on your field. This means Battle Shogun can grow to have a proper attack stat eventually, but its true power lies in its ability to generate Bushido counters, while finding an outlet for them. We'll talk about some cards in the next section that use Bushido counters, and one of them turns 6 samurai from a pretty good swarm deck into an FTK generator. Kind of blows the single Bushido counter it used to generate out of the water. Good job, Battle Shogun. I commend your growth. Part 5. The Magic of Teamwork. This section will cover the entire spectrum of 6 samurai spell and trap support, because despite us having several different eras of support, it's all pretty applicable to everything. And thank goodness, because as good as the monsters have been, some of our spell and trap cards get nutty. On the other hand, some of them are like Shien's Spy, a normal spell that has you selecting one of your face-up monsters you control and giving control of it over to your opponent until the end phase. So you can use this as a wacky little way to trigger your own floating effects in any deck, not just 6 Sams, but you really need to build around this for it to be worth it. But what's really, really funny is that this shouldn't even be a Shien card because it's written in a way that doesn't include it as part of the sub-theme, at least in the OCG. Not that it matters because nothing interacts with Shien's spell cards, but hey, translation weirdness is fun. Shien's Smoke Signal is a normal spell that adds a level 3 or lower 6 samurai monster from your deck to your hand. See what I mean when I say that Shien has a thing for 3s? This means you can't grab Grandmaster or Kizan, but we do thankfully have a wealth of excellent options. Kageki is like reverse Grandmaster, Mizuho and Shinai are both level 3s, and Elder is a free special summon. But despite the benefits, it really isn't good for you. They should really focus on quitting smoking. 6 Strike Triple Impact is a normal spell you can activate if you control 3 or more face-up 6 samurai monsters. You get your choice of destroying all face-up monsters your opponent controls, all face-up spells and traps your opponent controls, or all set spells and traps your opponent controls. So it's kinda like Lightning Storm, except what makes that card so good is that you can use it without setup, whereas Triple Impact needs you to establish a full board. Some opponents might allow you to do that, waiting for you to commit to something more impactful to negate, which this will inevitably bait out. But at that point, you might as well just run Lightning Storm. If you can afford it, that is. If you can't, then hey, do I have a budget alternative for you? But I did hear somewhere that Triple Impact brings about human instrumentality, so maybe don't use it? Asceticism of the 6 Samurai is a quick play spell that targets a 6 samurai monster you control to special summon a 6 samurai monster from your deck with the same attack but a different name, and if you do, destroy it during the end phase of this turn. Without exaggeration, this is one of the most important spells in the entire theme. You might notice that a lot of monsters in the theme share an attack stat, or have effects that boost their attack in a way that matches another, which can set up some great combos. For instance, Elder and Kagemusha have the same attack, so either of them plus Asceticism make Shien. A boosted Kizan can be targeted to summon Grandmaster, and a boosted Kageki can summon a legendary Inishi. Or, if you want to get even trickier, you can normal summon the Kageki, activate its on normal summon effect to summon a 6 samurai, but before it resolves, and while it still has only 200 attack, you can chain Asceticism to be able to summon Fuma. And if you don't have any 6 samurai on field that match another, Legendary Secret is able to mimic an attack stat to become a good target. The targeted monster will be destroyed during the end of that turn, which you don't have to worry about if you make sure you use the target as material for a summon before then. And, rare Duel Links tip here, I was quite fond of using Ties That Bind to mess with attack stats even more to broaden your range of summon targets. It requires a bit of knowledge to take full advantage of this, but with a little discipline, it'll pay dividends. Cunning of the 6 Samurai is a quick play spell that sends a face-up 6 samurai monster you control to the grave, then targets a 6 samurai monster in either player's grave, and special summons that target. This is one of those flexible revival cards that can accomplish a lot. There's of course being able to swap out a 6 Sam for a more useful one, but it can also put more damage on board. Just use this during the battle phase while you have a 6 Samurai in grave, and you can cycle one out for another. It can even be the same one if you fancy, and if you ever find yourself in the mirror match, then you're in for a ride because you can steal a monster from your opponent's grave for some reason. Now, my campaign to make everyone play 6 Samurai so we can use that funny part of the effect begins. Secret Skills of the 6 Samurai is a very similar quick play spell. It sends any monster you control to the grave, then you target one of your banished 6 Samurai monsters and special summon it. Now, this is obviously meant to be used primarily with the Secret 6 on account of all the effect destruction protection, but both Inishis do banish a ton of 6 Sams, so your targets are both varied and bountiful. But it's not much of a secret, right? We did just have an effect like this. 6 Scrolls of the Samurai is a quick play spell that tributes 2 face-up 6 Samurai monsters to special summon a Great Shogun Shien from your deck. It's kinda like you're fulfilling the summoning condition of Great Shogun Shien, but you trade out the monsters instead of keeping them on board in exchange for getting the summon out of your deck. And since Great Shogun isn't very searchable, you can see why you might want to play this. But it's a big ask to lose 2 monsters to summon another, just to run the risk of getting ashed. Heck, even before hand traps came out, this was Brick City. And really, who has time to read all those scrolls? That's gonna take forever. You think maybe they have an audio scroll version? Gateway of the 6 is a continuous spell, and each time any number of 6 Samurai monsters are normal or special summoned, you place 2 Bushido counters on this card. And you can remove Bushido counters from your field to activate one of the following effects. For 2, you target a 6 Samurai or Shien effect monster, and it gains 500 attack until the end of the turn. For 4, you can add a 6 Samurai monster from your deck or grave to your hand, and for 6 counters, you can target a Shien effect monster in your grave and special summon that target. Now, when I said Asceticism was the most important card in the theme, I still mean that. But Gateway of the 6 is the most explosive. This card lacks any once per turn restrictions, so as long as you have the counters, you can keep paying for the effect. And while boosting a 6 Sam and reviving a Shien are nice, the 4-cost search effect is the reason this card was banned. And honestly, it's kind of a miracle they brought it back to 1. The recursive nature of the card is compounded by the fact that the 4-cost effect can grab you a 6 Samurai that can special summon itself, giving you back half the counters you spent on searching it. And it can draw counters from your entire field, so the more cards you have that generate Bushido counters, the more of those counters you get per summon. And trust me, you'll end up with a lot. And while it's only at 1 at time of recording, Battle Shogun can easily add this to your hand, and amazingly, it generates Bushido counters too. This has led to some fragile but powerful loops, capable of burn FTKs and ripping out an entire hand. But me, personally, I just like to use it to spam a whole bunch of 6 Sams and bum rush our opponent with advantage. However, regardless of how I'd like to use it, this card is a gateway to more uncouth strategies. Shien's Dojo is a continuous spell that gains a Bushido counter each time any number of 6 Samurai monsters are normal or special summoned. You can send this card to the grave to special summon a 6 Samurai or Shien effect monster from your main deck whose level is less than or equal to the number of Bushido counters on this card. This is a pretty strong extension tool to grab a low-level 6 Samurai. It only takes 2 to get Kagemusha, and now that we have the Secret 6, you only need 1 to get Fuma, and that opens up the door to a ton of options. And if that summon isn't needed, then this makes for another battery that you can use to charge Bushido counters to make the most of Gateway. Look, it's even in the picture. You can also see Legendary Inishi and Kizan dueling in the artwork, which is just another chapter of the dojo's bizarre adventure. 6 Samurai United is a continuous spell that also gains a Bushido counter each time any number of 6 Samurai monsters are normal or special summoned, but this can only hold a maximum of 2, which doesn't make it a very good Bushido battery. And you can send this card to the grave to draw a card for each Bushido counter on this card. That makes this a pot of greed if you already have the second summon on hand, and in a combo deck like ours, we can use all the pluses we can get. And it's not once per turn, so if you draw into multiples, then whoo golly do you get some advantage. It's also really cool to see them form a union, though considering Spirit is in the mix, I shouldn't be surprised. Legendary Ebon Steed is an equip spell that can only be equipped to a 6 Samurai monster. It gains 200 attack and defense, but the important part is that if the equipped monster would be destroyed, you can destroy this card instead. Kinda like with Spirit. That's kind of it though, really. The boost is negligible and the protection is way out of date. It's not even searchable, but it is a really cool looking horse, so that's got that going on for it. Shien's Castle of Mist is a field spell, and when a 6 samurai monster is attacked, the attacking monster loses 500 attack during damage calculation only. So it doesn't help you get over your opponent's monsters, but it certainly keeps your opponent's monsters from getting over you. A 500 point debuff isn't nothing, especially if you're dealing with monsters in a similar weight class, helping to keep your early 6 Sams safe. But nowadays you can just run Mystic Mine to better effect. The real estate value here must have plummeted too. It's an old school castle, sure, but with all that mist, the view must be terrible. A better field spell is Temple of the Six, and it gains a Bushido counter each time any number of 6 samurai monsters are normal or special summoned, and monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack for each Bushido counter on this card. So not only does the debuff work outside of being attacked, it can potentially get even bigger than 500. And it's a Bushido battery on top of that. But how many times are we gonna keep milking this location for shots? Like, this is the third one. Return of the 6 Samurai is a normal trap card that targets a 6 Samurai monster in your grave and special summons it, but it's destroyed during the end phase of this turn. So you get a monster back for a bit, which you can use for a variety of purposes. But even if it sticks around until the end phase, you have some funky options you can try out. The destruction replacement of the original 6 Samurais don't care how they're destroyed, so you could revive a Zanji, and during the end phase, when it would blow up, you could pop a Kaman you had on field so you can keep the monster you summoned. It's a bit too slow to see widespread play today, but hey, another way to trigger Kizaru ain't half bad, though I don't think that'll be enough for this card to make its return. Double-Edged Sword Technique is a normal trap card that takes return to a whole other level. You target 2 6 samurai monsters in your grave and special summon them in attack position, and during the end phase of this turn, destroy them, and if you do, take damage equal to those destroyed monsters' attacks. Like with Return, you can do some silly destruction replacement shenanigans, though importantly you can't have one of them cover for the other, since they're both set up for destruction at the same time. Also, since it is multiple 6 samurais being destroyed, you won't be able to use the secret 6 samurai to save them. However, with the way the game is now, this opens up a ton of options for you if you trigger this on your own turn. It's already all the material you need for Battle Shogun, but it can also set up your synchro summons. Elder and Kagemusha are both Earths after all, so while you can negate a spell or trap with Shien once per turn, you can negate infinite spells with Naturia Beast. It may be a double-edged sword technique, but with some creative applications, this can mean double the trouble for your opponent. Shien's Scheme is a normal trap card that you can trigger if a 6 samurai monster you control is destroyed by battle to special summon up to 2 6 samurai monsters from your hand. Yeah, so this card sucks. If it's summoned from basically any other zone, I could see the appeal, but you already have to have the cards in hand, in a deck that's already really good at belching them all out. Is this the kind of tactical acumen Shien is capable of? Because if so, how'd they get this far? 6 Strike Thunder Blast is a normal trap card that has you removing a Bushido counter from your side of the field to activate one of these effects. You can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it, or target any card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. This is some excellent flexibility. It's a compulse for any card, not just monsters, which can avoid the trigger of any destruction effect. However, if that's something you don't need to worry about, and you just really want to blast a monster, you can do that too. And with the advent of Battle Shogun, you'll have all the Bushido counters you could ever want. I wish this card was recyclable. Heck, I wish it was searchable, because I can see this card being a Thunder Blast to play. 6 Style Dual Wield is a normal trap card that you can activate if the only monster you control is a single 6 samurai monster in face-up attack position. You target 2 cards your opponent controls and return those targets to the hand. Bold choice to put a restriction of having only a single monster of the theme that does nothing but swarm, but I guess you had to balance the double compulse somehow. I feel like this card was a lot more popular in Duel Links. You can probably tell at this point what I like to play, and while it was a controversial pick, the smaller cap on monsters meant it wasn't outlandish for your opponent to remove one of your 6 Sams, only to open themselves up to a retaliatory dual wield. And if your opponent fell victim to that, you'd be winning that game in style. The 6 Shinobi is a normal trap card that you can activate if you control 6 6 samurai monsters with different attributes to skip your opponent's next turn. This became possible once the EMZ opened up, as you could stick Rihan, Shien, or Shadow in there to make room for the remaining 5, though Battle Shogun has arrived to do something similar while giving you downward pointing arrows. However, despite being a swarm deck, this is nearly impossible to pull off. For one, most of the deck's swarming capabilities are centered on Earth, with very little of that being spread out in a meaningful way. And honestly, you might end up expending so many resources setting this up that the extra turn might not have a lot of bite anyway. I can appreciate them trying to pay homage to United, but you're better off just skipping this one. Backs to the Wall is a normal trap card that has you paying life points so you only have 100 left, and it special summons as many 6 samurai monsters with different names as possible from your grave, but you can't special summon any that share a name with a monster you already control. This is the ultimate desperation tactic. This is like Return from the Different Dimension, except it costs more and does less, though that may be why it's still legal and RDD isn't. But despite my gripes, this is actually a game changer. You can trigger on special summon effects to get more value, bring out a horde of chump blockers to keep you from dying, revive powerful bosses, the works. I mean, if you're gonna lose the game anyway, you might as well make it so your opponent has to do it the hard way by chewing through all your cards again, which just goes to show you that a corner duelist is the scariest. Breakthrough, and yes, you have to say it like that, they put the exclamation mark in there for a reason, is a normal trap card that has you selecting a 6 samurai monster you control. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, Great Shogun Shien and all 6 samurai monsters you control can attack your opponent directly during the battle phase this turn. So this allows you to swing in for a ton of damage even if your opponent has humongous monsters compared to you. They already printed Uriza to do that for you, but let's just ignore that. The idea is neat in theory, but since it's a trap card, you have to wait a whole turn to activate this and hope you're still in a position where you can utilize this effectively. So I say, if you're gonna break through, you shouldn't half-ass it, just smash your opponent's entire field. That'll show them. Swift Samurai Storm is a continuous trap card, and each turn after the first time a 6 samurai monster you control battles, all 6 samurai monsters you control gain 300 attack until the end of the turn. Yeah, I guess that's cool. Helps our tiny 6 Sams get big enough to do actual fighting. Nah, I got nothing. We gotta do the next one. Swift Strike Armor is a continuous trap card, and during the draw phase, each time you draw a 6 samurai monster, you can reveal it and special summon it. This might have been good if it was a continuous spell that triggered any time you drew, because United would be even more busted than it already was, but alas, this card has so many unfortunate qualities that it's hard to recommend. Maybe one day they'll print a whole lot more normal 6 Sams, and we can combo this with Heart of the Underdog to flood the field, but for now, we'll have to strike this from the record. Musakani Magatama is a continuous trap card that you can activate in response to your opponent activating a spell or trap card or monster effect that destroys a card while you control a 6 samurai monster to negate that activation, and if you do, destroy it. Destruction has kind of fallen out of vogue, what with all the bouncing and sending and banishing, but it does come up from time to time. Heck, a lot of negation effects destroy, so this can be a counter to your opponent's counters, which is pretty neat. Now we just need to find a way to make this searchable so we can lean on it more reliably. A more situational usage for this is that it lets you see your opponent's psych locks, but it hardly ever comes up. Having the right items to unlock those requires a lot more planning than I'm willing to do. Part 6. If we keep adding samurais, we're gonna have to rebrand. So that's all these 6 samurai cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we are firmly in the aggro committee. We have a lot of spamming capabilities and no lockouts, so we can leverage our material for huge toolbox problem solvers, while keeping a few deck slots available to pull off an FTK if at all possible. But failing that, we have some strong monsters to push for game that have enough disruption and extension to help establish a board through our opponents. So what can we play to help them out? Well, I mean, gosh, what's to add? Reinforcement of the Army is a good 4th search card alongside Shien's Smoke Signal, and we have a lot of generic staples we can splash in to help. Solemn Judgments can help keep our board safe or keep our opponent off theirs. Board wipes like Lightning Storm, Raigeki, Evenly Matched if you want to be flavorful, all do wonders to keep your opponent on the back foot. Isolde searches you out a warrior, and if you want to mess around with Phoenix Blade combos, Fuma is a great target for Isolde's summon effect. But other than that, we have basically everything we could want without just making up custom cards. Basically, all I can think of is a silly tech pick, and that's running kaijus. Big, unaffected bunguses are really hard for us to get over, and kaijus help deal with them. And the best way to remove an opponent's kaiju at that point is to bounce them back to our hand, which Legendary Anishi is adept at doing. Alternatively, we could attempt to cut any 6 samurai that have an effect on normal summon and try to run the adventure engine. Having a free negate before getting into your combos is pretty nice. And that's all I have to say about 6 samurais. Despite not being used very much nowadays, they have an impressive suite of cards, and while the Secret 6 Samurai didn't really revolutionize the theme, it's only a matter of time before a new wave of support comes out that brings this theme into the modern era, and strikes fear into the meta with a well-honed blade. And if they do that, I get to make a follow-up video, so it's a win-win. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are 6 samurais the sexiest archetype around, or are we just too blinded by how cool samurais are to give them an objective analysis? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to show your support, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Once again, big thank you to Sakura Co. and Tokyo Treat for sponsoring today's episode. Use my link down in the description and use code GOLDEN and you can get $5 off your first box to get you started on your journey to enjoying delicious, authentic snacks straight from Japan. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Harry, the Ominous Benefactor, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Ashling Waltz, Avi Chali, Cryptic Gamer, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Howling Zangetsu, Inblink, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Meteornus, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Ruxith Sarani, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose, True Neutral, Tyler Cranston and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Corbinisms, Cozy Boat 275, Jesus Garcia, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Nitromo, RGS, Rem T. Bright, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Tyler Martin and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, and if you'd like to be a part of these credits, as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video where I talk about prestigious warriors, despite actual historical connotations, check out this video I made all about noble knights. And if you want to see 2 Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenkinai's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.